Hello friends, acquaintances, and enemies of all ages, my name is Combat Bird, and today we're going to take a look at one of my favorite childhood games while asking ourselves the question, is it still good? It's easy to be blinded by nostalgia, and while Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 are both gaming hits for their respective console generations, I've only ever met a few people who played the game that started it all. Red Dead Revolver. Red Dead Revolver follows our protagonist, Red Harlow. When Red was just a boy, his home was ambushed. This was just after his father had told him that they found a huge gold mine and were set to be rich. Luckily, Red manages to escape by grabbing his father's burning gun and shooting the leader of the raid, hurting his hand in the process. From this point forward, we follow Red as an adult, as he tries to uncover more information about who attacked his home that day and why it happened to begin with. We meet a huge amount of interesting characters along the way, mostly people who just happen to be crossing paths with Red. Jack Swift is an Englishman trick shooter who dual wields revolvers. Annie Stokes is a local rancher whose refusal to sell her ranch results in sabotage from the government, and then you have Buffalo Soldier, Red's cousin Shadow Wolf, and an enormous plethora of bad guys. The variety in characters and personalities is probably Red Dead Revolver's strongest point.
That wasn't very nice, Jack. Don't bet on making it out again.
Now obviously, they can't all be great. Bloody Tom probably isn't winning any character design awards.
I'm gonna make mincemeat out of you!
But the ones that do stand out are very memorable. Eventually, Red finds out that his father's partner Griff sold his family out to a man named General Diego, so as not to be killed by him.
I'm a businessman, please! I was just...
We soon learn that the very same Griff is now known as Griffin and is the governor of the town of Brimstone. Despite being a bit corny, I think that the story of Red Dead Revolver actually does a pretty good job of keeping you interested. It also captures the feeling of spaghetti westerns quite well, even though some of it can be a bit stereotypical.
My father's... I have news.
What is it, Shadow Wolf?
The gameplay of Red Dead Revolver is interesting. It definitely feels like it hasn't aged all that well, but it's still tolerable. For me, it's mostly the movement. Climbing things, rolling around, and occasionally jumping feel exactly how I remember them. That is, they feel appropriate for an early 2000s PlayStation 2 game. The shooting itself isn't too bad, but there's a bit of drift whenever you move the crosshair around. Each character you play as has a special unique ability that can be activated by pressing the right trigger. For Red, this is Deadeye. And while it functions a little bit differently, you might recognize this ability as one of the core mechanics of the Red Dead Redemption games. For Jack Swift, he locks onto you with every bullet he has loaded. Annie Stokes and Buffalo Soldier both get an enhanced super shot, and Shadow Wolf gets flaming arrows. These mechanics make each character feel like more than just a different gun. Usually a level goes like this. You run through an area killing any of the small fry you come across, and then at the end you fight a boss. I use the term loosely, of course, because not all of them are really boss-like, but for the most part they're unique and have something cool in their fights. Once you've completed a level, you'll get a ranking in 4 categories: accuracy, time, damage taken, and best combo. If you score well on these categories, you'll get a star stamp next to it. Get 3 star stamps, and you'll get the second unlock for that level. I did want to complain about one thing though, and that's the combo system. To get higher combos, you need to defeat enemies in succession, but more importantly, you need to be landing shots. What this means is that if I only go for headshots, usually I'll run out of time before I can get to the next enemy. This wasn't as much of an issue as I'm making it sound like, but there were a few levels where I had to make sure I only got body shots so that I could get the combo stamp. Anyways, I made it a point to get the second unlock in each level, and for one important reason. Red Dead Revolver has a local multiplayer mode that is so incredibly fun. Even to this day, I have such a blast every time I play it. And the best part? Usually that second unlock I was talking about is an additional character. Without exaggerating, you can play as almost every single character from the game. And usually they have the same abilities they had from the story mode. Pig Josh will run you down before blowing himself up. Mr. Black will pull a minigun out of the coffin from his back. Professor Perry will spit snake oil on you. Once again, not all the characters can be that cool.
I'm gonna make mincemeat out of you!
But the idea of being able to play as anyone you come across during the story, at locations you experience during the story, is so cool. Okay, I know I talked about nostalgia earlier and rose-tinted glasses, Let me take those off. The multiplayer is super unbalanced, not at all the kind of thing you want to get competitive with. You have a few different ways of playing. Bounty Hunter mode is the main one, where you're competing with each other to see who can reach a certain number of kills first, basically. Sundown is the same game but with a time limit, and High Noon is for dueling, which is more of a fun little mini game but doesn't really hold you for very long. Throughout these modes, you'll earn some basic power-ups and have a good time experimenting with the characters. The multiplayer is not a perfect game mode, but it's a really good time to just sit down with some buddies and mess around. Overall, Red Dead Revolver is still a really good experience. The story is silly but fun, the visuals are dated but charming, and the gameplay is wonky but enjoyable. I am so happy I chose to replay this game, and if you're interested in playing it yourself, you can actually purchase it for the PS4 for pretty cheap. And while it still has some rough spots and the visuals are nothing to write home about, I'd still recommend it. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I had a great time making it, and hopefully you had just as good of a time watching it. And as always, have a wonderful rest of your day.